those topics and participate in the open houses. There's lots of really exciting things happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Hickey up next.
Thanks, Your Worship. As Council's appointee to the Uptown St. John Board, we had a committee meeting this past week in the anticipation of our AGM that's upcoming, and certainly lots of exciting stuff going on. I know they just put in a pretty exciting application into the federal government to see some redevelopment of a couple forgotten areas in our uptown, which is particularly exciting. I also was able to attend the Coverdale Center for Women is launching their new transitional housing project, and will head for PAC, I think, at their next meeting. And it's certainly a huge addition to Waterloo Village. I know there was a lot of effort and a lot of investment put into it, both from the federal and provincial governments, and that's going to be a huge addition to our continuum of housing in St. John, and really help to add that need for transitional housing. Also, as a quick one, as I finish off my 2 minutes, I dusted off my bike this weekend and hit the roads. Potholes are still a little rough, but I know we're getting there. And it was a really nice day on yesterday for a bike ride. So be sure to get out and enjoy the weather. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I've got a road bike in the basement. I won't care about potholes.
Yeah.
Councillor Radwan, over to you. Not a road bike, sorry. I've got a, what's that? Mountain bike. Yeah. Yeah, I got the shocks, the rock shocks.
Thank you, Mayor. So I got to go to quite a few great events. I was at the Tartan event and then went and had some lunch with these lovely ladies and gents, and we enjoyed some time together. I also, with Councillor Hickey, actually was at the Underpar Golf Academy, where they opened up this state-of-the-art indoor facility where you can not just go and play golf, you can play soccer and baseball, and this is actually the same technology that Tiger Woods has in his house and on his yacht, which I thought was quite interesting. I also did get to the open house for the Coverdale Centre and to the Exhibition Park Association meeting. It was great to get out and meet folks out there. One other thing that I did was I actually participated in a webinar that was on international. It was put on by the International Federation on Aging. And it was quite interesting because they said worldwide 1 in 2 people discriminate people based on age. And this is actually something that affects all ages, not just seniors, but most negatively impacts seniors. And why is it important? Well, it actually impacts health. Obviously, there's lack of inclusivity this way. And also it has huge implications on the economy. So then I thought, why is it so important to keep in mind our senior population? Well, because we have 38% of St. John is 60 and older. So something to kind of consider when we're making decisions around this table. That's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of shout outs here. First goes to a shout out to Alice McKim, who is starting up on a business in town. I guess it's more of a drop-in center, moving toward a nonprofit as a bit of a hub for the LGBTQ plus community in St. John, moving onto Germain Street from May 1st. So if anybody is interested in tracking that development, that, of course, you'll remember that commercial space has been vacant, and already it's a place where people gather, and so they're hoping to turning it into this major gathering place and crossroads for the community. That's called Adoringly Shire. It's got a Facebook group. You can check it out. A 10-year strat plan. Just a quick shout out to everybody who participated on the Shape Your City project we had on there for getting the public's input on the 10-year strat plan. So that is going to be a main driver especially for our growth committee, in looking at the areas of strategic investment and development where we get the best return on investment for people. and to grow the city and whatnot. And we're wrapping up that final stakeholder engagement process. So we should see something on that at council here soon for anybody who's interested in the 10-year strat plan, which we all should be. As your chair, certainly, I hope you are. And then the last one is the First Steps community build. So this weekend, the Two Library is going to be, we're going to be heading into First Steps to try to rally and support that nonprofit in our community. Does very important work for single mothers and young women who are pregnant to try to bring some new life to the unit. So if people are interested in that, they can track along there and come check us out this weekend at First Steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Norton, and then over to Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple quick things. I don't know if you've been west. If not, you're missing out on the best part of the city. But when you come back over, you can't take a left off the Reversing Falls Bridge. So if you don't know, you got to check out the sign. And it's probably a good cause, because I remember one of the first things I heard was traffic calming going down Douglas Avenue as one of our residential corridors. If we can keep it going down Chesley Avenue, less houses to bug. So you're trying to turn left onto Douglas Ave, go down over the hill. That will keep some of our councillors happy that live along that stretch, less volume coming off Reversing Falls Bridge. So just a PSA on that one. I did want to say thanks to the Ukrainian Association of St. John. I know the City of St. John is Pal's partner at my daytime job at PES. And every week we're welcoming Ukrainian families to today from the Ukraine. And like all newcomers, we welcome them with open arms. And some of the good work being done is from the newly formed Ukrainian Association of St. John has held a very successful fundraiser on Saturday, April the 9th. And the event took place at the Jervis Bay Legion and drew close to 700 people. They raised $22,000 to go towards medical supplies and other essential items. So hats off to them for that cause, and to Councillor Ogden for the lapel pins today that we received. Thank you, sir. Another couple quick things. The St. John Energy's Birchill Wind Energy Project. Many hands make lighter work, and many hands have been a part of that project, and it's going to be operational in 2022. So another step towards greening our infrastructure and making us more sustainable as a community. So I see Commissioner McGovern on the other side, and I know he's instrumental as it relates to that utility and some of the good work they're doing. So hats off to SJE as they keep the good work going. And last thing, if you need one number, the only number you need to know, two numbers you need to know, how to get a hold of your mom, and customer service, 658-4455. Keep that number on your fridge. It's your one-stop shop for all things City of St. John. They'll help direct your call. All right.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. 658-4455. Thank you, Councillor. We can't say that number enough. First of all, actually, thank you to Council for suspending our bylaw, and to the staff in our City Clerk's department for allowing the Deputy Mayor and I to join virtually tonight. For me, it's from the North Shore of Lake Erie. I am here upgrading my sailing certification. Some would know that I'm heavily involved in coaching of youth sailors in the province of New Brunswick. And we'll be bringing a few sailors in this direction in August as part of the Canada Games this year. But we also know that the Canada Games are coming back to New Brunswick in 2029. And wouldn't St. John be the perfect place for it to come back to? We certainly have all the infrastructure already, and we have the heart and experience in running it. Just a little shout out to anybody who might be listening and a decision maker. St. John 2029 for Canada Games would be brilliant. Talking about St. John earning things, gosh, it will be the first time in 2 years. The cruise ships will be back on April 28th, and St. Johners would remember that St. Johners earned the cruise ship industry when a cruise ship came to St. John instead of going to a southern port because of a storm, and because of the way St. John turned out, we built an industry on it. So on April 28th, we'll be celebrating the return of the industry, and look for some fireworks that night as well to celebrate not just the cruise ships coming back, but the hard work that St. Johners have done to earn that industry. And finally, as much as all of this is good news, just your health reminder of the week that we are still in a pandemic. Wear your masks when you're able, social distance, sneeze into your elbow. Lately we've been talking not only about COVID, but there's a Norwalk going around and some other things. And just good health habits will keep us healthy. And most of all, remember to be kind. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, everyone, for a snapshot of the last week. It was a busy week. It was a 4-day week. We have a 4-day week this week. It's going to be as busy again. Hope everyone had a little bit of time to take a few hours off over the Easter weekend, whether you celebrate Easter or you don't. It is nice to get a few days together off. I find it hard with email because I don't know. I guess I'm nosy. I can't stay away from that thing. Anyways, it was nice to have a couple of days where even when I thought I should be doing something, I really couldn't do anything. And that's what I love about that. And I think there's only like 2 or 3 days in the whole year where they're like that. So anyways, thanks everyone. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next, we have proclamations. So there are 2 on the agenda. The first one's 7.1, and this is for National Immunization Awareness Week, April 23rd to the 30th.
Whereas Immunize Canada has identified immunization in Canada as an important public health measure for all Canadians. And whereas parents and healthcare providers in every community have a responsibility to ensure that children are immunized on time and receive the full schedule of vaccinations required to protect them from serious diseases. And whereas a week profiling the importance of immunization in Canada would increase public awareness that many diseases are effectively and safely controlled by immunization, thereby reducing the burden of illness in our communities. And whereas immunization is considered to be the most cost-beneficial health intervention and one of the few that systematically demonstrates far more benefits than costs, and whereas Canada is joining other communities around the world to encourage childhood immunization around World Immunization Week, sponsored by the WHO, the World Health Organization. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Donna Node Reardon of St. John, do hereby proclaim the week of April 23rd to the 30th, 2022 as National Immunization Awareness Week in the City of St. John. Thank you, City Clerk. Next item.
Thank you. The second proclamation is 7.2 on your agenda. It's GBS/CIDP Awareness Month, May 2022.
Whereas GBS/CIDP Foundation of Canada is a national, not-for-profit patient organization that supports patients and families afflicted with Guillain-Barré syndrome, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, and variants such as multifocal motor neuropathy. And whereas Guillain-Barré syndrome has a sudden onset of symptoms which can cause complete paralysis within a day. Recovery can be unpredictable. Patients and their families face an uncertain future, usually requiring months of hospital care without knowing if or when they will recover or whether they will face long-term disabilities. Whereas earlier diagnosis, treatment, and access to rehabilitation services can improve the chances of avoiding permanent, lifelong residual damage of the nerves. The cause of these conditions is unknown and can develop in any person, regardless of age, gender, or ethnic background. And whereas we are working to raise awareness of these rare conditions so that future patients can get help sooner and will know that our organization is here to provide hope. And whereas we provide support and information through trained volunteers, our website, materials provided to hospitals, local and online peer-to-peer support group meetings, patient educational events, and build awareness within the medical community. And whereas we advocate for access to diagnosis and appropriate treatment, and also support Canadian research that aims to improve the quality of life of patients with GBS, CIDP, and MMN. Now therefore, I, Mayor Donna Node Reardon of St. John, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as GBS/CIDP Awareness Month in the city of St. John. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Your worship, next we have a public hearing, but we're about 4 minutes early, so we could jump ahead to the consideration of bylaws until we reach 6:30.
Okay.
So the first one under considerations of bylaws is 10.1, and this is a bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting water and sewerage, and it would be going for first and second reading.
Okay, Commissioner McGovern. Am I sending that one over to you?
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. This item before you this evening is to repeal the schedule that lays out charges for industry for industrial raw water and replacing it with Schedule E, which are the 2022 raw industrial water customer rates. This evening will involve first and second reading of the rates. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will take a motion, Councillor Hickey and Councillor Harris, or do you have a question? Councillor, okay. So I have a motion on the floor. City Clerk, do you want to?
Yeah, so yes, this is a motion for first reading, and we would just read it by the title. once the
Okay, so
motion
we have a
passes.
motion for reading by title, Councillor Hickey, Councillor Harris. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. I was getting confused. Motion carried.
The title of this is a law to amend a bylaw respecting water and sewerage. And again, a second motion, Your Worship, for second reading by title.
Second reading by title, Councillor Harris, Councillor Killen. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend a bylaw respecting water and sewerage. We still have 2 minutes left, so we could do another quick bylaw amendment. So next on the agenda is 10.2, and this is for a zoning bylaw amendment with Section 59 conditions at 35 Margaret Street.
Okay, so this one here I'm passing over to Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes, Your Worship, members of council, before you for third reading this evening is an application for rezoning for a property at 35 Margaret Street in East St. John. The application is intended to rezone the property from the 2-unit residential zone to low-rise residential in order to legalize an existing 4-unit dwelling. The application did receive first and second reading following the required public hearing on April 4th. I would point out for council's information that council's approval of third reading was conditional upon the satisfaction of the building inspector with the submission of a building permit application, which would illustrate the necessary improvements to meet the National Building Code, and that in fact was completed. So with these requirements being fulfilled, along with all other legislative process requirements, council can now move forward with third reading and approval of the Section 59 conditions. With that, I'll turn it back over to Your Worship.
Okay, City Clerk, I'll get you to read out the motions we need.
Yes, Your Worship. So first motion would be a third reading in its entirety.
Third reading in its entirety. This will be the first motion. Councillor Stewart and Councillor Killen. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John, be it enacted by the City of St. John and Common Council convened as follows. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by 1, amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John by rezoning a parcel of land having an area of approximately 488 square meters located at 35 Margaret Street, also identified as portions of PID number 00316950, from 2-unit residential to low-rise residential pursuant to a resolution adopted by council under Section 59 of the Community Planning Act. And next, we would require a motion to approve the Section 59 condition.
Approve Section 59 conditions. Councillor Killen, Councillor Stewart. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And one final motion to give third reading by title.
Third reading by title. Councillor Harris, Councillor Killen. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
So now it is 6:30, so we can proceed with the public hearing, which is on your agenda as item 9.1. And this item is to initiate stop-up and closure for a portion of Chipman Hill. And it would be first and second reading required tonight. And this is a public hearing, and the general counsel will give a brief introduction.
General Counsel, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, members of council. Before you for public hearing this evening is an application to stop up and close an 11 square meter portion of Chipman Hill to support a development that involves the shops of City Hall. Mr. Curtis Langell, Manager of Real Estate, will provide a brief presentation on the reasons for the application and staff's recommendation in this respect. But before I hand it over to Mr. Langell, I will say that Mr. Wallace-Floyd is present this evening in the chambers on behalf of the applicant to answer any questions from council. Over to you, Mr. Langell. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. This is a public hearing for the consideration of a street closure for a portion of Chipman Hill, being 11 square meters in area. As I'm sure you're all aware, the owners of the City Hall building are actively involved in renovating the shops of City Hall, the pedway level. And part of their renovation plan is to incorporate a new entrance off of Chipman Hill for the public access, and this would include also a new wheelchair accessible ramp. Due to the limited space between the City Hall building and the property line abutting Chipman Hill, they are requesting that the city stop up and close approximately a 1 meter width by 11 meter long area. This area is the accent brickwork that we're all accustomed to seeing out there. There is no portion of the traveled pedestrian concrete walkway that's going to be considered for closure, nor is there any portion of the motorist street area to be closed. It's just strictly accent area. Mr. Wallace-Floyd is here, as Ms. Tompkins mentioned. I would like to point out that we solicited comments from a number of city departments looking for their feedback. All of the departments involved were supportive of this minimal stop-up and closure. And if you have any questions, I can certainly answer them. And if not, Mr. Wallace is here to answer them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So what I guess I'll do is we'll open the public hearing, and then if any council has any questions for staff, we'll do that after, okay? Thank you. All right, so I will ask if there is anyone here who would like to speak against, I'll open the public hearing, speak against the proposal. We don't have anyone registered, but I'll ask 3 times if there's anyone here who would like to speak against this proposal. I'll ask again if there's anyone who would like to speak against the proposal. Now I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the proposal. Anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the proposal? And I'll ask a final time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the proposal. We had no one registered for that either. So I will close the public hearing, and I will ask council if you have any questions for Mr. Langell in regards to this. Okay, so I will ask the city clerk then. Oh, sorry. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through you to Curtis. I had a constituent send me a note about the, I guess not specific to this, but the inside section of the pedway through the shops of City Hall being closed over the weekend. Curtis, do you have any indication if that will be consistent?
Well, I do know that there's certainly some area, the pedway level, that is closed now. They have the gyprock up, but I really don't have an answer for that.
I mean like the passage from Market Square into Brunswick Square.
I'm sorry, I don't have any knowledge of that. Maybe perhaps Mr. Wallace may have some information on that.
No, well, I'll ask you to come down, Mr. Wallace, and just even introduce yourself for the record, and then we'll have the mic.
Your Worship and Council, my name is Wallace Floyd. I'm the Vice President of Development for the Fundy Harbor Group. We are the owner of this building as well as the Fundy Key project that you're all well aware of. The pedway, as we work closely with Samir and Jason within their department. I'm not quite sure what happened, if it was off this weekend. It usually closes at 1. And as construction is going on, we will be closing it down, excuse me, intermittently in order to do the demolition and in order to work within our construction schedule, but we have committed to keeping the pedway open as often as possible with special consideration towards the Memorial Week hockey tournament. So we hope to have lots of people coming through, and you'll be able to see the new designs that are coming out as well.
Sure. Thanks very much, Wallace. I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
thanks for making sure it's a priority not to keep it closed consistently. I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right, City Clerk, I'll over to you for the motions we require.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in this case, we require 2 motions, first reading by title and second reading by title.
Okay, I need a motion for first reading by title. Councillor Killen, Councillor Radwan, on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
This is entitled a bylaw respecting the closing of roads, streets, or highways in the city of St. John.
Okay, and I'll take a second reading by title. Councillor Stewart and Councillor Hickey, on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw respecting the closing of roads, streets, or highways in the city of St. John.
Thank you. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
Next, we have the third item under our consideration of bylaws, and it's item 10.3 on your agenda. And this is a staff report and attached bylaw, ride-sharing bylaw. It would require first and second reading.
Commissioner Hugenholtz, I'm over to you with this one.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I'm going to provide a brief intro to this item. Perhaps I will start by recognizing a typo in the report that's on the agenda this evening. It does refer on the second page, I believe, to the minimum age. That should actually be maximum age in reference to the age of the vehicles. Just to set up this item, we did conduct quite a bit of research on similar bylaws in other jurisdictions in the Maritimes and across Canada. We did undertake a period of public and stakeholder engagement, mainly through Shape Your City, that concluded with overwhelmingly positive feedback. So that engagement was advertised on the city's website and through our social media channels. Notices were hand-delivered to the taxi companies by the taxi inspector. We received a total of 100 respondents to the survey, and that provided feedback through that. Almost 90% of the respondents did indicate that they would use the service if available in St. John. There were some concerns or reservations that were cited, however, that did include a negative impact of ride sharing on transit, taxi companies, also concerns about the compensation of drivers. I will point out that the adoption of a bylaw would just represent the first step in a process. We would still need companies to actually set up shop in our local market. And just to add a little bit of local context here, councillors may be aware that Fredericton did in fact enact a bylaw in their jurisdiction roughly around March of 2020. So that was just weeks before the pandemic hit. So certainly we recognize that may have had an impact. However, as of now, no companies are currently operating there in Fredericton. There seem to be some challenges with some of the insurance coverage that's required in the Provincial Motor Vehicle Act. Moncton is roughly in the same position as we are, where their staff are drafting a bylaw and expect to be taking it to their council for consideration in the upcoming weeks. There are some regional considerations that I would highlight as well that are perhaps somewhat unique to St. John. One of the requirements in the Motor Vehicle Act is that the municipalities actually need to have a local bylaw adopted for companies to set up ride sharing within their boundaries. So in Fredericton, Fredericton is really the only local jurisdiction that would be doing that. However, here we do have our neighboring municipalities, Rosse, Quispamsis, Granby, Westfield, perhaps even further afield, that really we would be unable to offer ride sharing between those jurisdictions or within the boundaries of our outlying municipalities unless they as well did adopt a similar bylaw. So we have reached out to our counterparts in those municipalities to put this on the radar, and certainly Envision St. John is also actively involved and looking to facilitate a regional conversation there. Just as other bylaws have evolved and changed over the years, we do anticipate additional refinement of this bylaw and adjustments as necessary as we receive either feedback from, national or international rideshare companies, or perhaps even local homegrown companies seeking to set up ride sharing in our community. We expect as well that as we get into actual operations, there may be elements of this bylaw that we'll decide that need to be tweaked based on feedback that we're receiving. We do have a couple folks here tonight that were instrumental in developing this bylaw. I recognize Jacqueline Boucher from our General Counsel's office, as well as Ian Fogan, who's the Director of Transit and Fleet for our community. So subject to your questions, I will turn it back over to City Clerk for first and second reading. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to get this motion on the floor. Councillor Norton, it's been your baby for a couple of years. Do you want to move that? Thank you. Can I get a seconder on the motion? Councillor Stewart. All right, I'll take questions. Councillor Lowe.
That this is the first and second reading of this new bylaw, and my only concern is that it's a fair field for the taxi industry, right? And what I can see from reading through it, it is. The only little difference is about a cab has to do a yearly motor vehicle inspection. If this goes, it's a 2-year one. The money they pay the city's different, but it equals out the same to a certain extent. The criminal check is the same, except it is done by the person that applies to have these cars. The money is so much money plus 20 cents a ride. The city will be collecting that, and that will let it be up to the city. The difference is that in the cab industry here in the city, if we go back 9 or 10 years, there was 10 companies in the city running cabs. 240 licensed drivers. No, wrong. 240 cabs with probably 400 to 500 drivers, full-time, part-time. Tonight, right now, today, there's 4 companies left, and there's probably 100, 110 active drivers. That's what exists. There is no taxi company in Rossi or Quispamsis as of today or tonight, whatever you want to say. So I think it's a good idea, even though I spent a lot of years in the cab business, right? But if you happen to go out in this city on a Friday or Saturday night and have a drink, and you don't want to drive, good luck getting a cab going home. But this, as it stands now, will not get you from St. John to Quispamsis if this was ever formed. This can only go within the city of St. John. So in Fredericton, as Michael said, up there 300 people applied. And when they checked with their insurance company, no way. This rideshare people that exist in different provinces, in different states, in different places in the world, they get the insurance. And they can relay it to the driver of the car when he's carrying a rideshare passenger. When that passenger gets out, you go back to your home insurance. The province of New Brunswick does not allow that. There's no insurance in this province that will do that. The cab insurance goes to a facility where they pound out cabs to different organizations, different insurance companies. So as it stands now, if there was a city the size of St. John, similar to Fredericton, you'd probably need 20 to 30 of these people. They could apply for insurance, same as a cab does. The minimum you're going to pay is $7,000 for insurance. That's just for PL and PD. It's not for theft, it's for nothing else but that. But as it stands now, you know, we're talking about the first and second reading, but I would like to see before it gets to the third reading that the insurance thing gets clarified and gets straightened up. Because I read all 100 letters that were put through the system. I read every single one of them. And many of them were people that wanted to go to Quispam, Rossi, Grand Bay after a night out. This does not service that unless Quispam, Rossi, Grand Bay had a rideshare organization too, the same thing. And I don't think anybody wants to travel with a car that doesn't have proper insurance on it. And Michael explained everything correctly, but I think that to continue through and not have the proper facts as to what's taken place, I think's wrong.
Councillor, can I come back around to you?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
at over your 3
Yeah,
minutes?
no problem.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. This bylaw to me, it's generic and open-ended, which is fine. I guess my question is, how do we learn from the hard lessons learned in other cities and other municipalities? And I'll address the question to either Director Fogan or Commissioner Hugenholtz, whoever wants to weigh in on this. But we know that, you know, companies like Uber and Lyft, they have dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of labor filings against them. A lot of experts are suggesting that these are predatorial companies that do disservice on a labor context to drivers. It's a race to the bottom for the lowest possible wage. It disrupts local industries. We've seen all kinds of protests over the world. But there is an alternative out there that does seem to be doing well, that a lot of experts are talking about and pointing at as success. Things like municipally owned or cooperatively owned ride-sharing companies that are localized, that keep the profits localized, that don't send it to Silicon Valley. So have we done any work to figure out, okay, this is a bylaw that's going to enable whoever wants to come to set up shop. But have we done any work to provide vision or to provide a sort of a track, or can we do the work, I guess is the other question, to try to head that off and get our own, to either incentivize a local operator or an entrepreneur to get this done that integrates Quispam, SIS, and Rossi, to Councillor Lowe's point, or allows the city to bring something in-house like we have with St. John Energy, which is in our own energy utility. I know it's a broad-ended question, but I am concerned about bringing these companies in and just having them, you know, not having learned those lessons as on a governance perspective. So.
Do you want to let Commissioner Hugenholtz take a stab at that then?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the councillor. Those are all very good questions. I think this is new ground for our municipality, new ground for our province, frankly. So I do expect there will be some lessons that will be learned. But I also think that our municipality is probably not going to solve all of those issues. It would be certainly nice to think that we get a local homegrown company that starts up and, you know, doesn't have that race to the bottom, doesn't treat their drivers like independent contractors. But there's only so many companies that are even in this service. So we've certainly heard that there's a desire for us to enable these companies to set up shop here. I think this bylaw is the first step in doing so. I think if once they do set up here and start operating, I think we'll have to monitor it like we do, you know, our other bylaws, and just make adjustments as conditions warrant. I'm not sure that answers your full question, Councillor.
I mean, maybe also, I get what you're saying 100%. Is there, like Director Fogan, is there any reason Or, you're looking at a modernization of transit. I know in some Scandinavian countries, they integrate that. You go on one app and you can see, I want to go point A, point B. Here's your next transit bus. Here's your cab number, or here's your ride sharing group. Who do you want to, pick your journey kind of situation. But again, they're usually in those Scandinavian countries, they're either owned by a municipality or owned by the state. Have we come up across anything like that within this transit perspective?
Through your worship, no, we've taken best practices in Canada here so far in adapting this bylaw. The biggest obstacle, as referred to Councillor Lowe, is definitely the insurance. In New Brunswick, the insurance follows the owner, and there's certainly right now with the Financial and Services Commission in New Brunswick, they haven't allowed an endorsement to get around that. So it's the impediment that's right in front of people. And we have allowed in this bylaw are required actually for the companies to track how many rides they're giving, where people are being picked up, where people being dropped off. So there is a possibility in the future of integration with public services like transit if we have an app that plans the entire trip. So it is set up that way that we can integrate it in the future. It's just not contemplated right at the moment.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Killen?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really want to thank everyone who contributed to the Shape Your City conversation. Like Councillor Lowe, I read all 27 pages of that because it was so enlightening and so helpful in, figuring out this decision, right? So I just am wondering, we've kind of touched on this a few times, but adopting a bit of a local first approach when seeking these partnerships. There is resounding evidence of predatory practices of companies like Uber and Lyft, and there are, in fact, entire books and TV shows on the fact now. But that being said, I don't think technology itself is the problem. One of the more prominent comments that resonated with me was regarding safety. And, as a woman who moves through this world, I feel that very much. There's comfort knowing who your driver is, being able to see ratings and all that good stuff. I am aware there are locally built solutions that could empower local taxi companies to get online, for instance, and streamline the car for hire experience. So would we need to amend this bylaw to adopt a bit of a local first approach?
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go over to Councillor Redwan.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one question, and then I have a quick comment through you to Commissioner Hugenholtz. I'm just wondering, first of all, has the city had any ride-sharing companies approach the city? They wanted to come here.
No, they have not.
Okay. And, it's interesting to kind of see the comments. And as somebody who likes to travel, I haven't done it for a while, but, and somebody who has traveled to developing countries where there are no standards for labor, no standards for cabs. You can sometimes get into a taxi cab and you're wondering if it's going to stay intact. It's a little bit scary when you're overseas and you experience this sort of thing. So I've also witnessed the other side of it where people are actually competing to get these jobs because companies like Uber is keeping a very high standard of cleanliness. The cabs have to be in very good condition. The drivers can't be intoxicated while they're driving. They have to be very clean cut. And so as somebody who has traveled overseas, it's something that I feel comfortable. I know who the driver is going to be. They get a rating. I get a rating as well. So it creates a very, strong sense of security. So the reason why I'm talking about this is for newcomers. So when newcomers come here, they also have that sense of security with some of these ride-sharing companies because of that sort of brand that they've intended. I've had some extremely negative situations in cabs overseas that has just scared me, where people were intoxicated. The car looked like it was going to fall apart, almost getting into car accidents. And so I go Uber all the way when I'm in developing countries. And I think that newcomers will kind of look at this as well until they get comfortable and they know that we do have trusting companies here. We do have strong labor laws and things. And I would hope that those labor laws would kick in if there's any companies that's not holding up to a standard.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Norton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate what Commissioner Hugenholtz said, I guess. He's absolutely right. Expressions of interest should be received by the corporation and the corporation only, and not through individual councillors as it relates to expansion efforts into a particular marketplace. Absolutely, I agree with him. With that said, I think it's important to know that whether it's individuals or personal businesses, oftentimes, I shouldn't say oftentimes, in some cases, first base may be respective councillors who may get a sense for what the climate might be like in particular wards or particular areas. That said, I know I just sent out one that I received recently from URIDE. URIDE clearly on its website says locations coming soon to Fredericton, Moncton, and St. John. Communication with me, just waiting for the bylaw to be passed. URIDE has absolutely impeccable customer reviews, would be accredited by many jurisdictions in British Columbia, from Kelowna, Kamloops, Nanaimo, Prince George, and Victoria, which wouldn't be your Torontos, your Calgarys, your Vancouvers, your Montreals. I'm looking to get into the Halifax marketplace as well. With all that to be said, that's a long soapbox speech to say that ride sharing is more than your Ubers and your Lyfts. It's way more. As soon as we say that, then we might as well be along the same lines as saying that public transit is just buses. It's not. It's more. It could be streetcars. It can be active transportation. It can be walking. It can be e-bikes, which is gaining in popularity in places like Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, those large suburbs. I can go on. It's subways. It's even by boat, collecting, going back and forth between Dartmouth and Halifax. I won't bore you anymore. You get the idea. Merely this is an open invitation for more folks like URIDE on their website to go ahead and say, look, St. John's open for business. Don't expect folks to come here with innovative solutions to close that last mile in our transportation gaps that are already current transportation, cab, and active transportation routes can't close and have them beating down our door. Don't rely on the federal government to provide all the monies we need, to provide all the transportation we require to grow our population and connect point A to point B. The municipality at some point has to be progressive in its bylaws to send an open message. This is something you can do responsibly. Then we're here. We want to have a conversation, and we have a bylaw that will allow you to do it. Let's get it done, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think a lot's been said about this already, so I won't add too much, but would just toss in that I hope what this plan does is put structure in place and put effort in place from the city, so that, you know, inevitably when ride-sharing companies do show up in St. John, we have a structure in place and we have a plan in place to deal with that and to address that effectively and in the best interest of the existing local market and folks in St. John to access it. And hopefully, you know, certainly to Councillor Lowe's point, hopefully this will compensate that increased demand on Friday evenings and on Saturday evenings when I can attest it is tough to access taxis in St. John right now. I guess, you know, I posed this to Director Fogan, perhaps, who is sitting behind me. With efforts like this and models like this, I've seen in a few municipalities across the country opportunities to take advantage of transit access through ride-sharing programs and transit access through efforts like this. And I know it's something we've alluded to in smaller vehicle pickup with our transit intention. Is there any ability or any viability to connecting those two, Director?
Through your worship to the councillor, actually, this council will see in a couple weeks through our transit modernization plan, looking at apps like route planning as part of the transit app. And yes, and it would integrate with any other form of transportation, whether sponsored or not. So it can be a private company, as long as they make their data available. The route planning app can hook that up.
Thanks very much, Director. I think for me, at least, that really changes the shape of what access to transportation means in St. John, and hopefully what cost-effective access to transportation is. And hopefully, as we move forward, we can continue to look at ideas to innovate with that. Certainly to Councillor Harris's point, which is a good one, about investing in more social enterprise-esque efforts along those lines as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogden?
One thing that I was listening to as I was listening to everyone talk was when Councillor Lowe brought up about the province not having a law about the insurance. And I guess that tells me that people have to realize that the province of New Brunswick is an urban province now. And perhaps some of the provincial laws still reflect that we are a rural province. And that's one of the reasons we're going after the taxes. If you increase the density of the population, you'll lower your taxes in the community. And to do that, and to what Councillor Norton was saying, that transportation is not just buses, it's a mixture of things. And as we try to draw the province into the idea that this is a provincial, that we are urban, and that we're trying to increase our density, which will lower our taxes. I also think we should look at, referring to Mr. Fogan, is that integrating buses and other forms of transportation, because our buses go on main routes, that this would help. But all these things that we're talking about right now speak to an urban community, and we've got to get the province on side, and we have to be open, as a number of councillors said, like Councillor Hickey just said, we have to be open when people come courting our business, that we have the laws and the infrastructure in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, it looks like we're on round two. Everybody. Oh, sorry, Councillor McKenzie. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKenzie, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that St. John is ready for. I guess my question is how ready is the outlying areas? Because I don't know if a company would come to St. John knowing that it's restricted just to St. John, the city, and not being able to go outside. So I'm wondering if anybody has been any indication to what the other councils think, if they've been approached about it.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have reached out to the CAOs of the outlying municipalities, let them know of our plans, that we were working on this bylaw, and that it was our intent to bring it to council. We did provide an earlier draft of the bylaw to those CAOs. We also included in your kit this evening, actually, is a letter of support from Envision St. John. They also see this as important to our region from an economic development perspective, and they're supportive of facilitating some kind of regional conversation. Now, we can request, we can provide them information. Clearly, it would be up to the outlying municipalities to actually draft and adopt a bylaw. I think it is important that that be in place. I think absent some kind of framework to offer ride sharing in a regional context, I don't think we'll be successful in attracting those companies to our boundaries. So if council does grant first and second reading here this evening, it would be our intent to share that with the CAOs of the other municipalities, share with them the updated bylaw, and see what role we can play in terms of facilitating that.
Thank you. And I also think it's important that the rules of the game, so to speak, are the same in all areas, that they don't all have different bylaws, so that, you don't leave St. John and go into quis pempsis and you're under a different set of rules, that wouldn't make much sense. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on round 2, 3 minutes. Councillor Lowe, you're up first.
Yeah, just like, as it moves to third reading, I just want to make sure that the public understands that the biggest problem is insurance. Insurance in the province of New Brunswick, which doesn't exist in the province of Quebec and Ontario and some of the other provinces, and not in some of the states in the United States. But people should realize that they can still do it without the insurance. They'd have to get what they call taxi insurance. But I think that as it goes to third level, I think it should be straightened out by staff here before they move it at third level. And if Ian can come up with something that involves the community, I think it's an excellent idea. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Harris?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess my last point, just on this local first approach that Councillor Killen brought up, which I think is the right approach to take. It does concern me that Envision, in their letter of support, mentions Uber and Lyft. Like I know there's some. I know it's not all ride sharing is Uber and Lyft, but these are our economic development agencies, and if they're going out to try to pull in business and set up business here, that concerns me that they're not looking at like born rate. Like I mean, whatever the one that Councillor Norton was mentioning is great. That's fine. There's other ones out there. There's one in Montreal that the city of Montreal had a leading role in building and supporting, which is called Ava, and they take that local first approach. And it's a very successful ride-sharing cooperative model. So I would love it if our city manager could weigh in on this. I know Commissioner Fudge is sitting in for our city manager, John Collin. Before third reading, if we could get some sort of, I guess, come back to council with a bit of an assessment on the landscape there. Is there anything, do we have any tools for consideration at the time of adoption of this bylaw to build in some of that opportunity? To promote something like this, or to bring Envision in to have them have a more dynamic role in equaling the playing field. Because I wouldn't want to see our economic development agency get the signal from tonight that they're to go out and try to bring in business from Uber and Lyft only, because they put it right in their letter of reference or their letter of support.
Did you want to speak to that? Thank you.
Through your worship, we can certainly take that away, Councillor. I wouldn't make the presumption that the Envision was only referring to those two companies. I think they use those two companies as examples. But we certainly can get further feedback from Envision and look at, I guess, options with respect to local and other barriers with respect to the bylaw.
Thank you. Okay. I would say the same. I think that people just recognize the name Uber and Lyft, so I think it tends to get used. But we do have a motion on the floor, so I will call the question. Yeah, I've already got a motion on the floor. Yeah, I'm just calling. No, I've already got a seconder, don't I?
Yep.
Yeah, I have the motions on the floor. So I'll call on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
So it's 2 readings, Your Worship. So that was for first reading, and the
by title.
bylaw is entitled, "A Bylaw Respecting the Regulation of Ride-Sharing Companies in the City of St. John." And now one more motion for second reading by title.
Second reading by title, Councillor Norton. Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw respecting the regulation of ride-sharing companies in the City of St. John.
Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, Your Worship, under submissions by council members, item 11, we have item 11.1, a submission from Councillor Killen entitled "Request to Purchase In-Person Ticket for FCM Annual Conference."
Over to you, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so yes, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities is holding a conference in 2022 in Regina from June 2nd to 5th. I do have the flight and accommodations covered, so I'm just requesting a ticket to the in-person event. So the motion would be resolved that Common Council approve the request for funding for Councillor Joanna Killen for the registration costs to attend the FCM 2022 Annual Conference and Trade Show.
Seconder is Councillor Harris. I will ask the questions, City Clerk. Do we have that in our Budget, I know it's slim.
Your worship, yeah, I just looked at the budget today. Total budget we have is $7,500 for travel, $3,700 annually for courses. We haven't spent any to date, but we do have 2 council members that are registering. So I still think overall we would be under budget.
Okay, and we have Councillor Hickey as the seconder, right?
Yes.
Right, yeah, okay. Okay, so on the question? Yes, Councillor Hickey?
Thanks, Your Worship. Non-specific to this, but I guess more holistically, like take Quispam's, for example, is sending their whole council to this thing, or a good chunk.
4.
Oh, 4, which is twice what we're sending. I can't remember who it was around the table, but someone had mentioned developing a plan for this, whereby, you know, we essentially could develop a strategy for our term for these types of events. Was there any further indication of that, or any further plan for that?
No, do you mean like who would go year after year?
Yeah, like just.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, that is something that we should talk about as a team, because we have a 5-year mandate right now, and there are 10 councillors, which would be perfect. It would mean that 2 could go and be sponsored by the city every year. So whether that requires us to change the FCM reps, or we just say we leave the same reps, but we passed that opportunity around, I don't know. But yes, definitely we should look at that, because it's one of the few big events that, well, it's the only big event that's focused completely on municipalities. I mean, I have been to a transit show in the past in conjunction with a parking show. So, but I mean, this is really something a little bit different. So
Yeah, and certainly the benefit from them is obvious. I mean, obviously there's costs associated with it, but being able to attend those things offers us with a lot of perspective about what's going on across Canada, and to develop best practices on. And, you know, I know Councillor Harris brings it up all the time, but in an effort to become, you know, thought leaders on things instead of just making one-off decisions on this stuff. So I think it's important. If we could come up with something holistic so that, you know, Councillor Killen doesn't have to come every time she wants to go somewhere to make a big motion about it.
sounds good. All right, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, Councillor Killen, you're on your way to Regina. You're on your way to Regina in June.
Embarrassing. Ask everybody for this, but
all
thank you,
good.
everybody.
Okay, let's hope this is only getting televised in the Maritimes. City Clerk, over to you.
Yes, Your Worship. We have a second submission from a council member, item 11.2 on your agenda. It's from Councillor Radwan, and it's entitled Envision St. John Quarterly Update.
Councillor, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So my motion is that Envision St. John be asked to attend an upcoming council meeting to provide a quarterly update. And if I could get a seconder, I can comment as to why I have this motion.
Councillor Killen. Okay, you go ahead, and then I'm going to have the acting city manager speak on it as well.
Thank you. So I have had numerous requests in regards to a specific part of Envision that Discover St. John would have done. I've had quite a few entrepreneurs asking if there has been a lot of marketing that has gone on, if there would be the folks that used to sit in Discover St. John, tourism quarters when tourists would come in as well. And I'm just not really sure what to tell them. So that's why I've put the motion in.
I'll ask the acting city manager, but have you addressed that with Envision?
No, I've referred people to Envision though.
Yeah, okay, because that would be the best for you to, but you go ahead, city manager.
Yes, through your worship to the councillor. The members' agreement with Envision St. John, the city is a part of, actually has a provision in 5.8, reporting provision that indicates that on a quarterly basis, within 30 days of the quarter, into the fiscal period, that a performance report will be brought forward with KPIs for each quarter. So I did have the opportunity to reach out and speak to the general manager, Paulette Hicks. She indicated they'll be taking their quarterly report and KPIs to their board on May 5th. Subsequent to May 5th, they will distribute reports to the member communities, the participating municipalities, and then they would certainly be open to coming to present to council with respect to the reports that are going to be distributed.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it would be great because I'm getting a numerous amount of inquiries, so that's why I thought it might be good if there's any sort of presentation that can come here.
Okay, so I guess we'll vote on that, and what we'll do is we'll let them organize the time frame depending on their schedule. That would link with ours. Councillor Ogden?
I think it's a good idea. I've been involved with organizations, though, that have spent their whole time writing reports. And I really think that if we're focused on growth, creation of jobs, increasing our population, that's what I want people to, our staff, whatever, that's what I want them to focus on, not just writing reports. That's what I worry about.
Councillor Hickey?
Thanks, Your Worship. I was under the impression that this was part of what was supposed to happen anyway. Like, this is an ongoing effort, right? Like, they're coming regardless, right?
I believe they are. They're going to be bringing their reports out and quarterly, like the acting city manager said, it's generated after the quarter, and then it goes to their board and then to be ratified and then comes out to us. But I was sort of under that same impression as well. And I don't think we wouldn't have to have, they're a subcontractor basically to us. So if we want them to come in, we just have to ask.
Right.
You wouldn't require a motion.
But the expectation of this council is that Business St. John will be here 4 times a year to present to us. Okay. Right. Okay, great, thank you.
All right. So on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Lowe, opposed. Motion carried. All right, city clerk, next item.
Your Worship, next under business matters on the agenda, we have item 12.1. It's a staff report, City of St. John Public Transit and Fleet Low Carbon Migration Strategy.
Thank you. So I'm passing this over to Commissioner McGovern. Am I to introduce it, Commissioner? Are you introducing it? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you, and good evening once again. City staff, along with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions, have prepared the City of St. John Public Transit and Fleet Low Carbon Migration Strategy that will be presented this evening, starting with Mr. Samir Yamin, the city's Manager of Asset and Energy Management. He will introduce the presenters from Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions. And I would just note as well that the bios were circulated and are on your desk if you'd like to review them. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Yamin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Good evening, Your Worship, Member of Council. We are very pleased to be here to present the strategy here. We're very excited. There's a lot of time and effort being invested in this project or this strategy to develop it. We took our time. I would like to thank Mr. Hogan and Mr. Kevin Logley for putting the time to develop this strategy here. There was several consultations we held across the organization with various city departments, staff, with St. John Energy. Also, we had several consultations with manufacturers and municipalities across Canada to develop this plan. As you know, the proposed strategy is very well aligned with our climate change action plan, particularly is our corporate greenhouse energy action plan, which calls for the city corporation to be carbon neutral by 2040. As you know, the plan has identified the transportation, as you can see here, as one of the largest sector emitter of greenhouse gas emission, which approximately 31%. As a result, the city we developed some action item in order for us to meet this carbon neutrality by 2040. As part of our fleet and transit strategy, we have identified 4 strategies we need to develop, which is fleet downsizing, right sizing, develop an idle-free strategy, public transit and fleet low carbon plan strategy, and last one is to train and educate the staff how to use the vehicle and the transit. As you can see, the City of St. John's, the fleet department has already implemented 3 of the strategy, which is the council has already adopted the Green Our Fleet policy in June 2019. They did a vehicle replacement strategy using optimal replacement point, And also they implement and track and monitor by implementing telematics system to be able to determine the fuel consumption efficiency for each of these vehicles. And also they did the fleet downsizing. As a result of this implementation, the fleet was able to reduce their greenhouse gases by 30% compared to the 2015 year, which we already have 3 years. We already 3 years before when we meet our target by 2025, which is a very big accomplishment by the fleet department. The last one we did identify as part of our strategy for the transportation is to develop and implement a City of St. John low carbon, City of St. John public transit and fleet low carbon migration strategy. In order to do this here, we did develop an RFP and we engaging Wood Solution to develop this plan for us here. So, and all this funding is only funded by the province of New Brunswick under the Environmental Trust Fund. So we're here very pleased to have Wood Solution, Naeem Farouki and Matthew Goodrow to be here to present this presentation. We're very excited to present this. As you know, the strategy is our pathway or roadmap for us to move to transition to low carbon economy. And this pathway or this roadmap is very dynamic. It depends on, and is going to evolve rapidly, depend on the technology, the bylaw, and the policy, and the funding available. So now I'm going to hand it over to Naeem Farouki and Matthew Goodrow to provide us the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. As a representative for Wood Environment and Solutions, we're really excited to present our report and findings. Matthew Goodrow and Cassandra Goodrow are staff in our local office here who worked tirelessly on this project. So I had them come out this evening in support. So in terms of our agenda, we'll start with a background telling you the goals of the Green Fleet Plan, inclusions and exclusions, then move to inputs and assumptions, then talk about the procurement plan and the results and what recommendations we're making in terms of next steps, high-level roadmap, and then council recommendations. So what's interesting, the goals of the low carbon mitigation strategy for the city of St. John for 2025 emissions target was to be below 30% below the 2015 levels. In 2021, you're already 36% below your 2015 levels. And you're looking to have carbon neutrality by 2040. So as part of the goals of the Green Fleet Plan, we looked at two distinct technologies that allow you to go to a path to zero carbon. One was battery electric vehicles or hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Both provide you a zero emission tailpipe solution. We looked at incorporating transitional technologies such as hybrids or CNG, which is compressed natural gas vehicles. A high-level understanding of related CapEx, OpEx, and emissions was built in to be compared through qualitative factors such as risk, opportunities, and complexities, and to also look at opportunities to collaborate with other areas within the province. So what was included and excluded in the study? In terms of vehicle groups, class 1 to 8, you can see the list of different vehicle types. For 40-foot transit bus and 28-foot transit bus, excluded equipment was construction, historic museum vehicles, police bikes, non-renew novelties, boats, and generators. The report included roughly 96% of transportation emission-based assets from 2021, excluding only 4%. So here you can see some examples of vehicles that we recommended for each class, starting with the general purpose, the Bolt EV, police cruiser is a Mustang Mach-E, light-duty pickup trucks with the Ford F-150 Lightning, class 3 to 5 heavy-duty pickup trucks being the B2 stand-in, and then class 6 to 8 is the Lion 8 platform, and then class 7 street sweepers that we found were electric, and then class 8 pumper fire trucks that were electric from Vector, class 8 refuse trucks that are from Lion, and then 40-foot transit buses and 28-foot transit buses from Proterra and Optimal EV. So the ready date here represents when the technology is available that will meet your respective duty cycles. So if you're wondering why some are slated later than others, we're expecting the battery density to then be at the level that it can operate under your conditions. So the way we assessed this was we started with a business as usual scenario. If you just continued buying internal combustion engine vehicles, then we tested a scenario 2, which was battery electric vehicles, scenario 3, which was a hydrogen fuel cell solution, and then scenario 4 was implementing CNG in the heavy duty segment and then going to battery electric vehicles. Here you can see again the 8 classes of vehicles and their transition plan for the public works fleet. So you can see that certain vehicles were targeted earlier on, and you can see for the class 6 to 8 truck platform, we looked at an interim CNG example. So in terms of procurement plan, you can see here that the various class of vehicles being bought annually, you can see around 25 assets. It's a pretty steady state procurement model, which is really good. In terms of fleet mix, you can see how the GHG vehicles over the next 14 years would go down to 0, and they would be transitioned out of the fleet. So anticipated green procurements for the transit fleet is we did look at electric starting in 2023 and going to 2040. Right now, there are no hydrogen fuel cell buses available in North America that are the 28-foot length. They are available for the 40-foot length. So this was something that we noted and spoke to various manufacturers, and were given tentatively some interest around 2023 to 2024 that vehicles will be available. So here's the procurement plan for transit, purchasing 5 vehicles to 4 vehicles depending on the year, with conventional electric buses and specialized 28 to 30-foot vehicles. And you can see the transit fleet mix going down over the next 10 years. So what were the results of our study? What we found were the 2 best alternatives from a cost saving standpoint as well as an emissions reduction were the battery electric vehicle option as well as the CNG to battery electric vehicle option. And overall, we found that the savings to go down the path of battery electric vehicles to be 5.3% versus the St. John business as usual option, which is $225 million roughly. The battery electric vehicle one is $213 million. Fuel cell will be a little bit more expensive, $267 million, and then CNG to battery electric vehicle being $214 million. So you can see from a cost saving standpoint, it's about a 5.3% reduction for the battery electric vehicle, and the second best option being 5.1% for CNG to battery electric vehicles. On the emission side, it's a similar story. You can see the battery electric vehicle option bringing down the emissions by 51% over that period up to 2040. And then the fuel cell electric vehicle bringing it to 51.7. And then CNG to battery electric vehicles, it's 53.3. So this gives you an idea of the results of our analysis. In terms of next steps, what we recommend is that St. John move forward with a low carbon mitigation strategy aimed at using the battery electric vehicles. Implementation opportunities are outlined in the report should be explored farther to improving the adoption plan outlined in the roadmap. Implementation opportunities are presented in 5 themes: continuous improvement and reviews to be made to the migration plan, implementation opportunities for the city to explore, the timing of vehicle pilots to test new municipal and transit fleet vehicles, implications for staff readiness, need for communication and change to SOPs. Retraining is an important aspect. List of facility modifications required to accommodate battery electric vehicles in terms of transformer upgrades and bringing power. The roadmap will suggest times to reevaluate the viability of hydrogen technology in St. John. Hydrogen is a very robust fuel technology that should be considered in 2026. We did flag that in a few years to go back and look at that technology if it's more viable then. And as well, explore public-private partnerships and investments which could help reduce the cost of the hydrogen technologies and make it more competitive. So we are seeing a lot of movement across the country with hydrogen as a service, where organizations are coming and building hydrogen fueling stations and providing that at a kilogram fee. So in terms of the high-level roadmap, from 2022 to 2025, we're considering that phase 1. From 2025 to 2030, phase 2, 2030 to 2040 as phase 3. So in phase 1, we recommend beginning with grant and funding applications, which are already underway. Implement plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and battery electric vehicles for general purpose vehicles. Implement hybrid electric vehicles for police and heavy-duty vehicles, and implementing battery electric for transit fleet. Pilot battery electric vehicles for light-duty trucks, street sweepers, and refuse trucks. Explore implementation opportunities, public charging, on-demand transit, and community targets. Explore external partnerships and investments that would make fuel cell electric vehicle technologies competitive with battery electric vehicles for the next 3 years. Moving to phase 2, review and update migration plan to review the competitiveness of hydrogen technology, implement electrical utility upgrades and expansions, implement battery electric vehicles for light-duty trucks, street sweepers, and refuse trucks, pilot battery electric vehicles for remaining vehicle classes, and then expand the market scan to remaining assets, equipment, construction, and off-road. And then from 2030 to 2040, phase 3, review, update migration plan to review planned versus actual progress of the migration plan, implement additional electrical utility upgrades and expansions, implement the battery electric vehicles for remaining vehicle classes, implement zero-emission solutions for city equipment, construction, and off-road assets, and review the progress of the electrical grid decarbonization in parallel. Just in terms of additional benefits, you have local energy production and expenditure, increased revenue for St. John Energy, improve energy price stability, and community decarbonization. And in the current situation where we're seeing the volatility with hydrocarbon pricing, it's really important that these factors also be considered in your adoption. I'll hand it back over to Maria. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Faruqi, that was quite an impressive presentation there. There's a lot of information. Mr. Commissioner McGovern, are we ready for questions, or are you going forward?
Yeah, I was going to turn it over to Mr. Fogan next, just to wrap things up. He's had a significant role to play in this strategy, as well as Kevin Lockery, who's also with us here tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. I didn't have much more to add other than that your fleet group has been heavily involved, and you have the recommendation before you, so we're here to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the group? It's quite a report. It's very good. Well, I do have some questions for you here. I have Councillor Harris is up first.
Actually, Your Worship, it's not a question. It's just a round of applause. No other city in New Brunswick is doing what we're doing here. Like I don't know if council realizes that the last council put in place these targets. We're the only council that has reached any sort of meaningful target along the way. And now we've had this presentation that's going to take us to this carbon neutral state by 2040. And we're the only city in the province that's adopted the city's race to zero. Like there's a lot to celebrate here. And I thank you so much for this. This is a very high level plan. It was excellent. I'm really excited about the implementation strategy and the work everybody's doing. So thank you so much.
Councillor Hickey?
Thanks, Your Worship. Similar to Councillor Harris's point, I mean, this is the council that consistently looks at best practices, whether in New Brunswick and Canada for how to move forward. And, for one of the first times since I've been on council, this is when people are going to be looking at us for best practices. This is incredibly exciting. In my rough math, by the time the public give us the boot in the next election, half of our transit fleet is going to be electric, and something like 40% of our regular fleet is going to be electric. That's huge. I mean, these are big considerations. I guess my only question to staff is, what does the change in infrastructure look like from a charging perspective and a mechanics perspective?
Through your worship, Councillor. When you look at this project, we understand there's a major infrastructure required for us to be able to provide the energy sources we need to our transit or to our fleet here. So there's going to be some require a big infrastructure investment on this project, and this infrastructure investment is already included in our project. We had several discussions with St. John Energy, because St. John Energy will be this electrical provider, and we also look at our transit building to determine what is the required electrical infrastructure to be able to maintain this here. So there's going to be some changes. It is challenging. It is challenging. Let's not kid ourselves here. It's challenging here. There's a lot of variable involved in this project to move forward, and there's funding requirement. There's also depend on our grid, our electrical grid, our everything. So there's going to be some changes here. It's a roadway to go through this. It's evolving rapidly as technology evolving, and as also as policy, regulation, everything evolving. So definitely there are going to be some changes.
Thanks, Samir. It's certainly going to be a momentous task, but I have no doubt in it being a worthwhile one as well. And I think we'll certainly, I know this council is committed to making it happen, and will certainly be one that we can very proudly hang our hat on. In reference to being momentous, I mean, we're already well on track, ahead of track, on all of our other commitments in this realm. So, I mean, I'm fully confident we're going to meet this on target and on time as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Commissioner McGovern, I see your light on over there. You up next? Okay. Commissioner Hossack. What do I see? Oh, who's sitting in her seat? Oh, Ian. Oh, sorry.
So I'm sitting in that seat. Thank you, Your Worship. Okay. The one last piece for the councillor, through Your Worship to the councillor, for your fleet question on mechanics. Your pilot projects that are part of this migration plan will also include the installation of charging stations, of course, but will require people that we're cooperating with to provide that training on these vehicles and on the equipment to our staff at the same time. That's part of the lessons learned that we'll go through in the pilot stage.
Councillor Redwan.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to the whole team. So I got to tell you, I was just so impressed with this report. So before I dove into it, I had about 10 questions. I started getting through, I had another 5 come up, then another 5, then another 4. And by the time I was done, I have no questions, which is a record for me sitting around the horseshoe, right? So I just wanted to, it sounds a little cheesy, but when I was in grade 3, at M. Gerald Teed School, I did a presentation about the hopes and dreams of this little girl to have less gas emissions going into the air by vehicles. So by 2040, you're gonna help that little girl's dreams come true. So anyway, thank you for all of the work. This is very, very exciting. I know it was very cheesy, but you know what? That's just one little girl. There's lots of little girls and boys that have the same desires in this city. So thank you so much for your work. It's an incredible report. It's long, it's jam-packed with information, but I couldn't put it down. So thank you for all of your work.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Norton, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Gentlemen, Samir, I wish Councillor Sullivan was here, because he always has something interesting to say about when Samir presents, and it's, I think it's one of those things. Frankly, I got to tell you, you're speaking above everybody's head here. There's nobody that, I don't think there's anybody around this table at least has the credentials to, exactly understand what you're doing or how you come to it, other than the fact that what you're doing is you're building on the backs of those that come before us. And we get lots of comments. It happens every time I'm on council. This council did this or this council did that. I got to tell you, you know, the next council is going to do things that we never even looked at. In fact, when I go back, and the reason why I say we build on the backs before us, because we had harbor cleanup. We never get to this without harbor cleanup. We're looking after our environment there. And I could go through and name all the people that are responsible for those different areas, but then we got to Safe Clean Drinking Water. Safe Clean Drinking Water had an impact on our environment as well. You know, less reliant on things like chlorination to treat our water, and used UV light and other modern processes to clean our water, less reliant on surface water and some of the processes that went there with the state-of-the-art facility. I could look at arenas, Samir. I remember this council wasn't responsible for it, but you know, you were a part of it, and so weren't many around here when we looked at reflective ceiling panels in our arenas to make our arenas more efficient, which radiated not only heat but light to give better lighting in our arenas, lower our energy costs while also losing less heat. You know, we look at Plan SJ. Where's Jacqueline? She's here. Plan SJ. It's one of those things we think of planners, but it encouraged densification, building closer within, more compact neighborhoods. You know, we get a lot of criticism about Plan SJ, but we're building on the backs of that plan that came before us to look at now neighborhood plans and walkable communities. Never would have happened without that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this is all well and good, but it's all those stepping stones that help us get to this next level. And thank you for helping us get to that next milestone. This is a piece of it. Happy to support it. Can't wait to see where we are 40 years from now, because what they do then is going to make us what we do today look like absolutely nothing. So I hope by then we're all in flying vehicles. At least that's what the books when I was a kid read. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. 40 years from now, yikes. Councillor Killen, and then Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's okay, just so we can be super clear, we're actually going to save money down the road by going this direction? Thank you for saying that. What I thought was so interesting is just how much money you save by going green. And I find the misconception is that, you know, it's more expensive, it's new, it's all this kind of stuff, but ultimately we will be saving a significant amount over time.
Just on that point, the price volatility of diesel being, if it continues to trend upwards, the savings are only getting better.
Right.
For the transition.
And as we're weaning ourselves off fossil fuels, I'm glad that we can be leaders in doing that. Thank you, folks, for your presentation.
A few things I'd like to add to that too, though, is that this is looking at just the guaranteed funding that we have today. There's a number of other funding streams available to the city by the federal government, the FCM, and all these other places that make these approaches even more beneficial for the city. So like, I just want to make that extra clear that this 5% savings in net present value can go even further down, and that the fuel price listed in it was $1.30 for diesel, which if we look at the pump today, we're well above that, making these green alternatives look even better.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Gosh, Councillor Killen and Councillor Norton kind of stole my thunder, but I think a few important things to reiterate. I think Councillor Norton's recalling a comment I made a few years ago. I like when Samir presents to us, we either save money or win awards. And I think in this case, you know, and certainly it's our greater team, and Samir would be the first to talk about the team that he works with as well. You know, being green, I'm the money guy. I like being green. I'm a sailor. I like being green, but being green saves money. You know, it's not just saving the environment, saving the planet. But here's the data. You know, we need to be making decisions based on business cases. And as Councillor Killen said, this one just shows that when you do the research into alternate forms of energy, you save money. I mean, St. John Energy's all over it with our wind farm that's going up. You know, we're going to be green. We're going to save money. A real important point that was just made, you know, how do we finance this? Well, we finance this by getting it on our list. And and approving the strategy and adopting the recommendations before us, because then our staff is going to be looking to FCM and looking to the federal government, looking to the provincial government. Every time there's an opportunity, this is already on our list. It's something we're working on. So when that money appears, not only internally, but externally, we're ready. And we're ready to accept it and continue to move this strategy forward. So brilliant job to our staff, but certainly to this council for this being such a high priority as well. So well done all. Not sure if anybody's moved the recommendation yet. I would be happy to if not.
We'll take you as a mover then, Councillor Sullivan. And Councillor Hickey as a seconder. Deputy, you're up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just about everything's been said, but I got to tell you how proud I am to be part of this council, part of the city of St. John, a leading city in green initiatives. The St. John Energy, our utility, leading in green initiatives. I think St. John is being seen across the country as a community leader, and I'm sure that there'll be lots of organizations wanting to partner with us. I'm sure the FCM will want to support us. And just a great shout out to Samir and his team. Great work again. And we look forward to the next adventure. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. I'll also add that I'm proud to be part of this council and you know, grasping these initiatives, especially this one going forward. Great report. And as Councillor Norton mentioned, and a wise person once said, I read this, that if I see farther, it's because I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me. And that's so true. But you need a staff that also has vision and will work with the council. So we have that here. They want to move us into that next level. And so I congratulate them and say thank you to them. And thank you to you as well for bringing this report. It's great. And we're moving on. So we have a motion on the floor. And if there are no other questions, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to your whole team. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here tonight. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item is 12.2 on your agenda, and it's a staff report entitled 2022 Memorial Cup Legacy Project.
Over to you, City Manager, correct?
Thank you, Your Worship. St. John will be taking center stage on a national televised platform when we host the 102nd Memorial Cup beginning Monday, June 20th to Wednesday, June 29th. The host organizing committee has established a theme for the tournament, being one for all, and want to make the event more than just a hockey tournament. They want to leave the city with a legacy of engaging and giving back to the community. And just some growth metrics with respect to this tournament. It's expected between 11,000 and 14,000 unique visitors are expected to descend on St. John for the duration of the tournament, injecting up to $7 million in visitor spending. The marketing value we are receiving from having national media exposure over those 10 days is estimated at approximately $1 million. The host organizing committee, led by the event chair, Mark Anthony Ashfield, desires to leave a legacy project to the city with a generous donation of a ball hockey surface in the area of TD Station for use by the community. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to Commissioner Brent McGovern, Commissioner of Utilities and Infrastructure, to bring forth recommendations on the execution of a donation agreement with the 2022 Memorial Cup St. John Host Company, Inc., and a permit license for the property for which the ball hockey service will be constructed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. As Acting City Manager Mr. Fudge has said, joining us this evening is Mark Anthony Ashfield. He's the chair of the 2022 Memorial Cup St. John Host Company. Mr. Ashfield and members of the committee kindly reached out with a vision of ball hockey legacy project they wish to leave the city of St. John. And since then, staff have been working collaboratively with members of the host committee and on the details of such a ball hockey legacy gift being granted to the city. Staff reviewed the various sites and that are closely connected with the active transportation corridor in our city, which continues to grow. And at the same time, considering locating this, co-locating it with other city assets. And as is mentioned, site adjacent to the skateboard park was identified. It's an underutilized location. Also, it's connected to Harbor Passage, which is excellent, and beside the TD station, home of the Memorial Cup this year. Now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Ashfield, Chair of the Host Organizing Committee, to provide some insights and background on the committee's desire to leave this legacy project, and he'll turn it back to me to wrap things up. Thanks.
Mr. Ashfield, over to you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm excited to talk about this a little bit. It was last June, which sometimes seems like an eternity ago and sometimes seems like yesterday, that a small group of us got together to decide if we were going to make a bid for hosting the Memorial Cup. When we made that decision to go ahead, we knew it was not going to be an easy task. We knew that nothing was guaranteed for sure, and we knew that our competition was incredibly strong. St. John was competing against Quebec City to host this event. It's not one that we've had before, and it was certainly something that was on the radar for this city for quite some time. Our bid strategy was not to talk about traditional things because we knew that was going to be an uphill battle. So we didn't talk about things like facilities and hockey team and location and that type of thing. Instead, we wanted to focus on things that we would believe could differentiate us. And we really talked about the impact an event like this could have on our community. Our belief was that events like the Memorial Cup could really serve as an opportunity to bring the community together. And as anybody would know, there's a lot of division in the world right now. We thought that events like this could serve a common purpose and bring people together around something that was really a common interest of the people in this community and something that we could all celebrate. As was mentioned earlier, the theme for our event was One for All. And what that really meant was we wanted to take a focus on inclusivity, diversity and equity, and really providing opportunities for all members of this community to come together and experience an event like this. We also wanted to create a lasting legacy as part of this. We really focused on this not just being an event that takes place over 10 to 14 days, but instead this was an event that would leave a positive impact on our community. And when we say about a legacy, we were talking about two different elements. One element was certainly the social legacy, which I've talked about, and we'll be providing probably more information. We'll come out over this over time, but certainly lots of opportunities to engage socially with this event. But also we wanted to leave a physical legacy for the city. And for the physical legacy, we really looked at a number of different items to be a physical asset that we would actually leave behind. There were a number of elements that we considered in doing this. One was an opportunity to engage the youth and the young people in our community around something that would encourage active and healthy living. We also wanted this to be something that would fit in with the existing infrastructure and the flow of the city, and something that would be professionally done and something that we could all be proud of for years to come. And we also wanted this to be something that would not be a financial burden to the city. And in keeping with that theme, separate and apart from some of the operations that we've had, we've raised funding, and we've landed on an idea of a ball hockey facility that we want to leave behind for the city. The location of this, as was mentioned, will be beside the skate park that's adjacent to TD Station. That will fit in with the activities that happen there already with youth gathering, and provide yet another opportunity for some of the youth in the community to get together and engage in a healthy lifestyle. I also mentioned the need for this to be something that was professionally constructed and fit in with the aesthetic of the area, and something that would survive the test of time. We've gone out for a number of different options for this, and the opportunity that we've landed on is an organization that professionally constructs this type of facility for exactly the intended use that we've talked about here. We also wanted this to be secure and safe for people, so we've looked at signage and the ability to lock the venue if necessary, and those types of things. So we've covered a lot of the aspects that we wanted this to be something that we could all be proud of for years to come for the city. And the host organizing committee is actually setting up a legacy fund as well that will continue to fund some of the minor operational fees that will be part of this facility as well. So we're very excited for this. I would like to acknowledge that a lot of the city staff, some are in this room, some are on the line, have been incredibly helpful in landing on this as an opportunity and kind of working through some of the details. The Memorial Cup is going to be a wonderful event for this city and for this region. And on behalf of the host organizing committee, we're certainly looking forward to this event and also providing this legacy asset to the city when we're all finished. So I'll turn it back to Commissioner McGovern.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ashfield. Your Worship, I'd also like to briefly, in addition to extending my thanks to Mr. Ashfield and the host committee who have been excellent partners in working through this, the various stakeholders and numerous stakeholders who have also been excellent because of the site. There's a lot of natural challenges that come with it, but we've been able to overcome all of them, including Port St. John, Enbridge's Maritimes Northeast Pipeline, NB Southern Railway, CN Railway, and the province's Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. They've all been very giving of their time and helping us address the various challenges that arose as we looked at making this site a reality. And with that, Your Worship, the recommendation is as noted in the report.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will get a motion on the floor first before we get going. Councillor Killen and Councillor Stewart. Are there any questions? Councillor Ogden, you have your light on?
I just want to thank Mark Anthony and his team of volunteers and sponsors. I think this is going to be a new beginning for St. John to host major events and also to build on our recreation, which are council priorities. It's going to help our mental and physical health, and it's just going to help St. John. I just want to thank you very much.
Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just very quickly, to what Councillor Ogden said, I think the Memorial Cup is, that combined with 506, the Container Village, you name it. Like, summer 2022 in St. John is going to be the place to be. And I know this council is very excited for the Memorial Cup, and if there's anything else we can offer to support you guys moving forward, I know we're all ears on what we can do. So thanks very much.
All right. I want to thank you as well, Mark Anthony, for coming in. And it's a great project. It was an exciting time. It was fantastic when we got the news because, like I said, it was something that you hoped for, but I never thought it could really happen to St. John. So it was pretty exciting. And then to have this legacy project left behind is fantastic as well because I'm down at the skate. I walk the passage every day, and that skate park is busy all the time. So it'll be a nice complement to it. So it's a perfect location. And I know that there's been, as the commissioner mentioned, 5 or 6 landowners, et cetera, and easements in there. So it wasn't easy, but it's been done. So it's great to have. So really appreciate it. Appreciate everything you've done, all the work you've done. Appreciate the project, and it's great. So thanks for coming in. All right. So I will call the question then. Oh, is there someone else with a question? Anybody else's light on over there? Okay, sorry. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations. Here we go. Thanks. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item, Your Worship, is item 12.3 on the agenda, and this is an easement amendment and license for outdoor ball hockey arena on Station Street.
Okay, so I will take, I've got Melanie Tompkins, sorry, General Counsel. You're going to introduce it?
I will. Thank you, Your Worship. As you've just heard this evening, the Memorial Cup Organizing Committee has proposed to leave a legacy gift to the city in the form of an outdoor ball hockey arena to be located near TD Station. Our report this evening is intended to address the land rights required to allow the construction of the arena to begin, essentially on city lands and port lands. Given the support, we have Mr. Langell here to do a brief presentation on what the details of that are, but if council is willing to proceed to the recommendation, I'm happy to save Mr. Langell's pain.
Mr. Councilor Ogden will second it. All right, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Langell while he's here? If there are no questions, I'll call the question. Oh, sorry. Counselor, I've got two questions, actually. Counselor Harris is up first.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, like, the infrastructure that's down there, I assume it's, bring your own stick, bring your own ball. In any place, there's, like, in any basketball court, there's always, issues with nets and things like that. Is there anything that's going to be down there that's going to be at risk in an ongoing capacity? Just vandalism, mistakes, accidents, whatever. Just curious.
Good evening once again, Your Worship, members of council. To address your question, Councillor, that is still being worked on through our Growth Committee, Parks and Rec. They're working with the fine details. There's been a lot of discussion on whether or not this facility will be for strictly organized sport or strictly unorganized sport. I don't think, Commissioner McGovern, I don't know if that decision's been made yet. It might be a combination of all that combined. Certainly signage and lighting and security cameras are all part of that as well. But I don't know if a decision's been made on that yet. But perhaps Commissioner McGovern can answer that a little bit.
Yes, thank you. So we are working through that. The intention is to have the facility opened with no structured events of that nature per se. So it's open and accessible. But I know Commissioner Hamilton is working through that, the logistics of it with her team in terms of does the facility get locked at a certain time, for example, those sorts of things. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Ogden?
Thank you for all your work on this. Thank you.
Small part to play. Did you guys know that the Memorial Cup is coming to town this year?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so I will call who am I missing over there? Anyone? Oh, he's up there. Okay. Oh, Councillor Lowe. Okay. And Councillor Stewart. Should I wait for my councillors to get back? Councillor Stewart's here. Okay, there's Councillor Stewart. I guess I'll call the question. Call the question?
There's sufficient numbers.
Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, team. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, Your Worship, under committee reports, item 13 on the agenda, we have a report from the Finance Committee, item 13.1, and it's internal audit services.
Councillor Sullivan, over to you, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll start with the motion and with the seconder give you a small summary. Be it resolved that Common Council approves the attached internal audit plan for 2022.
Take a seconder on that. Seconder is Councillor Norton. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Certainly our internal audit crew has been already providing dividends just in the city of St. John, moving to do business in a big organization like big organizations do business. And our proposed internal audit plan for 2022 are two projects that are associated with their associated budgets and resources. These audits were selected out of a list of potential audit topics that have been compiled to date through meetings with senior leadership, through research and review of existing plans. The two audits proposed are as follows. First, a Market Square contract compliance. The objective of this internal audit is to assess the agreement requirements against current practices to identify compliance-based findings, improvement opportunities, and general observations. This internal audit will continue to work towards enhancing contract management at the city. The internal audit will require the assistance and teamwork of the General Counsel's office. And the second audit being proposed is health and safety audit for St. John Water. The objective of this review is to assess the design of processes that comprise the health and safety program for St. John Water. The review will include health and safety governance activities, tools, systems, applicable policies and procedures, communications, training programs, and incident management processes and systems. The city recognizes the importance of keeping the workforce safe on the job and values the importance of ensuring that the health and safety program meets the applicable requirements. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, does anyone have any questions for the Chairman of Finance in regards to this item? I will say the internal audit plan is great. Those are two big projects, and we've seen some of the internal audits come to fruition, and it's been great information to have. So it's really, I guess, in a lot of ways, it reconfirms for us that we're on the right track with what we're doing. So it's great information to have, and it's great to be doing it, because you should always be checking to see where you're going with, especially with your finances. So it's great. So it looks like there are no questions for you. So we have a motion on the floor, and I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Councillor. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, we have another committee update, item 13.2 on your agenda from the Growth Committee. It's an update to Land for Public Purpose Policy.
Councillor Killen, over to you as the Commissioner of Growth.
Chip.
Not the Commissioner of Growth. Chairman of Growth.
The chair over here. I'm going to go with Councillor Sullivan's flow here and read the motion first, and then I will read the summary that's going to accompany it. So first up today, we have the updates to the Land for Public Purposes policy. So the motion is Growth Committee recommends that Common Council adopt the following policy statement. The City of St. John's Land for Public Purposes policy ensures alignment with provincial legislation and a process to utilize available funds through the provision of money in lieu of land through the development approval process to support recreation, park space, and wellness in St. John. So some of the summary highlights here for everybody.
I'm going to get a seconder on that.
I get a seconder, sure.
Councillor Hickey.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so just in summary, the City of St. John's Land for Public Purposes policy provides a framework for utilizing available development land and or money in lieu of land to support recreation, park space, and wellness in St. John. What we are recommending is a refresh to this policy, and staff have drafted this, and we reviewed it at the most recent Growth Committee. Some of the highlights there are an increase in the funding allocations for local and community-based projects as indicated in the attached document, which you can see in the packet there. Permitting land for public purposes funds to be used on privately owned land. So this is new for us here. Obviously subject to conditions, including the applicant needing to be a non-for-profit organization. They've defined and clarified the interpretation of barrier-free access to facilities to mean that the public has access to the facility at no cost for a reasonable portion of time. There's also been a shift from biannual to annual applications. So for anyone who has applied for these before, it will go to once a year. And this also allows for community groups to partner more easily with our park service, where the city staff would lead the project together with community support. So pending council's approval of the statement, staff will release a new policy to the public and invite interested community groups to apply for LPP funding in the near future.
Okay, Councillor Radbon, you have a question?
Just a quick one, Mayor, through you two. I think Commissioner Hamilton would probably answer it for me. Since this is going to change, that we're going from biannual to annual applications, just wondering if you have any idea what month that would end up happening.
Your Worship, through you to the councillor, I'm actually going to refer this question to Emily Murphy, who we have online, to respond to the timing question.
Hey there. The answer to that question is that we would get it out immediately after this meeting, and that normally it would be April 1st. So that community groups that are looking to do projects throughout the summer would be equipped to do so.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Any other questions? Okay, this is great. I love that there's a little more money allocated. I do like the annual application, and the fact that it doesn't have to be city-owned property now. Those are all important for big changes on it, so it's great. I'll call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, team. Next item, City Clerk.
Yes, Your Worship. Next, we have item 13.3, another Growth Committee update, Municipal Encore Program 2022 Sidewalk Cafe Rebate Initiative.
Over to you, Councillor Killen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Wayne. Wayne's leaving everyone. Okay, so the motion today for this item, which is the Municipal Encore Program for 2022 for Sidewalk Cafe rebates. So Growth Committee recommends to Common Council that the Common Council enact and direct the city manager to implement the 2022 Sidewalk Cafe rebate initiative. Further be it resolved that the city direct up to $20,000 to rebate applicants who pay for Sidewalk Cafe permitting fees, zoning confirmation fees, and fees for parking spaces through this initiative from the Growth Reserve funds already allocated to the Municipal Economic and Community Recovery Program.
Okay, so I'll take a seconder on that. Councillor Harris?
Okay, so we are recommending that Common Council adopt this sidewalk rebate initiative as part of the 2022 Encore program, effective immediately. Small businesses are still feeling the impact of the pandemic, and this is truly a way for the city to support local businesses in our uptown business district. We endorsed this program last year, and it will effectively rebate 100% of the fees that restaurant and cafes owners would pay to the city in 2022 for their sidewalk cafe. They will still need to fill out an application for their permit, but will receive a free rebate of their fees at the time of submission. The cost will be covered through the Growth Reserve funds allocated to the Encore program and will be fully managed through the One Stop Development Shop. If any uptown businesses are thinking of setting up a patio or upgrading their existing one, this support from the city should help incentivize them to make that investment. Any businesses with questions about setting up a patio are welcome to contact customer service or visit One Stop Shop at City Hall.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Killen? Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the rebate. We already have it on the floor. You got, okay, all in favor? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item appears as item 15.1 on your agenda under general correspondence. It's a letter from Big Brothers Big Sister Bowl for Kids' Sake, ticket purchase request. And the recommendation is refer to the clerk's office to purchase tickets for interested members.
Okay, so that there's a recommendation there. And I'll take a mover for that if anyone's Councillor Killen and Councillor Hickey for a seconder. So how this will work is the way the tickets have worked historically for us is that opportunity is there rather than buy a table of tickets that we may or may not have someone, council show up to, or we don't confirm. We send them to the clerk's office for anyone who is interested can then, once we've passed this, can then go to the clerk's office and request a ticket. So that's how that works, and that's why it's in your kit for tonight. So the motion is on the floor. Pardon me? Okay, sorry. All in favor? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is 15.2, a similar item. This one's for the YMCA Red Triangle Awards, ticket purchase request. And again, recommendation refer to clerk's office to purchase tickets for those interested council members.
Okay, for the YMC Red Triangle. Councillor Hickey and Councillor Ogden, mover and seconder on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is 15.3 on the agenda. It's a citizen letter from Kay Carpenter with respect to sidewalk dedication between New Wentworth and Princess Street with a recommendation to receive for information.
Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I would just ask that perhaps if we put this on the floor as a referral to the Civic Commemorations Committee.
Okay, you making that motion?
Please.
Okay, take a seconder. Councillor Harris. On the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is 15.4 on your agenda, and it's a letter from Falun Dafa Association of Canada with a request for recognition.
Okay, with this one, Councillor Deputy, go ahead.
I would move receive for information, Your Worship.
Thank you. I have a seconder. Councillor Killen. On the question? Councillor Radwan, on the question? Hang on, wait, Councilor Redwine, just hold on for 1 second. Oh, there you go.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Just through you to, I think, Jonathan Taylor, City Clerk. I'm just wondering, it says request for recognition. So just process question wise, what happens to this once we?
So, Councillor, if there's a motion to receive for information, then there'd be no further action taken by the city staff. There'd have to be a specific direction given within the recommendation. So within the letter itself, I think the requesters had a couple options, requesting, I believe, a letter of greeting or a video. But the motion on the floor at the moment is to receive this for information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think that's probably appropriate in some ways. We would have to, if we were going to support any organization, we really should know what we're supporting on both sides of that coin. So I think at this point in time, it's probably a reasonable recommendation. So I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much. Next item, City Clerk.
Your Worship, we have a couple items that came from Committee of the Whole. So the first one is item 17.1 on your agenda now. And this is an amendment letter of engagement with PwC. And I can read out the proposed wording of the motion.
Yes, please.
It would be as follows, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the amended engagement letter with PwC in the form as presented to Committee of the Whole at its April 19th, 2022 meeting for a drafting of a request for qualifications, a request for proposal, and expert advice in the procurement process in relation to the city's review of its agencies, boards, and commissions.
Thank you. So I will need someone to move the motion. Councillor Killen, take a seconder on the motion. Councillor Radwine. On the questions, anyone have any questions for staff? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
And the final item from Committee of the Whole is item 17.2, and this is an assignment of lease for Sewerage. And the motion for this would read, resolve that council waive the required notice period under clause 12.02B of the lease and consent to the assignment of said lease for stall 15 and ancillary space at the city market with Black Douglas Holding Limited to Kyle Stewart, DBA Sewerage, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the consent to assignment of lease and the landlord's undertaking in the form attached to M&C 2022-131 and any documents ancillary thereto.
Thank you. Okay, I'll take a motion, take a seconder, sorry, or a mover on the motion. Mover. Oh, Deputy, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Harris. Anyone have any questions? Just for the public's information, Councillor Killen called a conflict on this one, so that's why she's left. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Councillor Radwan, you have a question?
Just a quick comment, Mayor. So I just wanted to do a quick explanation. I will be voting against this one, but it's just because I am hoping that the leases will get tightened in the city market. I'm not opposing business. The businesses, I think, would be great there.
Thank you, Councillor Radwan. I will also say then that I am on the city's strategic planning committee for the market, and we will be going through all functions of the market with a fine-tooth comb, looking at best practices, and we have hired a consultant to assist us with that. So everything, whether there are need to be tightened up or not, we'll discover that over time. So on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Radwan opposed. Motion carried. Thank you so much. All right, before I take a motion to adjourn, I just want to say thank you to staff for all the work we had. There's 500 pages in here tonight and another, I don't know how many on the consent agenda, but the clerk said 8:30 to me when we did our little meeting earlier. He said, you'll be out of there by 8:30, and it's 15 minutes early. I'm shocked. I had to check my watch twice.
10 minutes by my watch.
Not yet, not that good. He's pretty good. Anyway, so I will take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Good night, everyone, and thank you so much.
The city manager had it right. I believe he said 8:15.
Oh, you said 8:15?
I just counted off the chair.